Hi everyone, and welcome to the Sound Mind podcast, where we dive into the fascinating world of music psychology. I'm your host, Sophia, and as a music psychologist, I'll be guiding you through everything you've ever wanted to know about music. So whether you're a music lover or just interested in the science of sound, you're in the right place, so stick with us. Now, have you ever noticed how slipping on a pair of headphones can completely change your mood, even before the music starts playing? I think there's something powerful, almost magical about that moment. It's not just about sound quality or noise cancellation. Headphones have quietly become one of the most intimate tools that we use for emotional regulation, personal space, and daily rituals. They're how we disconnect from the chaos and reconnect with ourselves. So, in today's episode, we'll explore the psychology of headphone listening, how and why this simple act has become such a powerful part of our emotional and everyday lives. From creating boundaries in public spaces to triggering focus, comfort, or joy, headphones do more than just deliver sound. They help us shape our internal world. So whether you tend to listen to music on your commute, during a workout, or even winding down before bed, this one's for you. Let's dive into it. Now, one of the most powerful things about listening to music on headphones is how it can completely pull you in. It's not just about sound quality, it's about how music feels when it's wrapped around you, how it enters your body, your thoughts, and your emotional space. Through headphones, music doesn't just play near you, it almost plays within you. When we listen through speakers, especially in a shared or open space, the sound blends into your environment. There's reverb in the room, distractions from outside, competing sounds from your surroundings. It's like a constant negotiation between the music and the world around you. But with headphones, all of that fades away. You enter a controlled acoustic environment where nothing competes with the music. It's just you and the sound. Psychologically, this kind of focused listening creates what researchers call perceptual enclosure. And this is where your ears are physically enclosed, your attention narrows, and your brain starts to assign more emotional weight to what it hears. The boundaries between yourself and the sound become blurred. And that's why listening through headphones can feel so intimate. It's not just that you're hearing the music, it's that you're being touched by it. And there's something deeply personal about sound that makes it feel like it's inside of your head. Especially with in-ear or over-the-ear headphones, the physical proximity of the music creates this illusion of closeness. And similar to how we interpret someone whispering in our ear, from an evolutionary standpoint, whispers signal trust and intimacy. They require us to be close to someone, to listen carefully, and to feel safe. And headphones, they unintentionally recreate that same experience. It's actually a super interesting way to think about it. You also begin to notice details in the music that might otherwise be lost in a room. So think about that subtle panning where instruments move from the left to the right ear. Then you have those tiny layers of sound design, like maybe a vinyl-like crackle, a reverse breath, or even just a quiet backing vocal. With headphones, these micro details become foregrounded. You can hear the full intention of the producer or the sound engineer, not just the melody and the lyrics, but the full emotional architecture of the track. And some genres are especially designed for this kind of deep, intimate listening. Take lo-fi hip-hop, for example. It's a genre defined by its mellow textures, warm crackles, and nostalgic undertones. Most lo-fi producers, actually, they create music in small bedroom studios, often using headphones to mix. And the result is music that feels like a bedroom. It's cozy, slightly hazy. It's like soft around the edges. And when you listen to it through headphones, you enter that room too. I think R&B and ambient music also thrive in the headphone space. They often rely on spatial layering and really close vocal intimacy. So think about those close mic'd whispers, slow reverb, subtle background harmonies. All of these are meant to evoke closeness, sensuality, or introspection. And in these genres, sound design isn't just decoration, it's almost like a emotional scaffolding. Artists like Billie Eilish, for example, her brother and producer Phineas often uses production techniques inspired by ASMR. So think about whisper-like textures, silence, and ultra-close vocal miking. These all rely on the intimacy of headphones to have their full effect. Another standout example is binaural audio, and this is audio that uses two microphones to mimic the way that our ears naturally perceive spatial sound. These recordings can create these kind of eerie illusions. It's almost like footsteps circling around your head, or someone snapping their fingers behind you, or whispering from one side to another. A famous demonstration of this is the virtual barbershop audio clip. I think if you've never heard it, you have to go and check it out. It's got like over 40 million views on YouTube. It's pretty crazy, and it feels like someone is giving you a haircut in real life. But it only works with headphones. And the illusion breaks on speakers because it actually depends on your brain processing these two separate auditory streams, one to each ear. So it's super fascinating. Building on this idea is the phenomenon of 8D audio, and this is a trend that went viral in recent years, especially on YouTube and TikTok. I remember when I first discovered 8D audio, my mind was blown. I was super young at the time, and I remember just being like, this is insane, and showing it to my parents and making them put headphones on and listen to it. It's just, yeah, it was groundbreaking. But despite the name, 8D audio, it doesn't use 8 dimensions. It's actually a production technique that creates the illusion of sound moving in three-dimensional space around your head. So through the use of binaural panning and reverb, songs are remixed to feel as though they are swirling, circling, and dancing around you. It can feel hypnotic or even surreal, like the music is alive, moving with intent and emotion. So I know they sound super similar, but what's the difference between binaural and 8D audio, you're probably thinking? Well, they are based on the same principle, tricking your brain into perceiving spatial movement by delivering separate audio into each ear. But binaural audio is typically recorded live, so using two microphones spaced like human ears to capture sound naturally. So it's almost like an audio photograph of space. And in contrast, 8D audio is created artificially, so by manipulating existing stereo recordings with digital effects to simulate that space. So think of it like this. Binaural audio is realism, while 8D audio is surrealism. One captures the world as it is, and the other reimagines it through movement and illusion. That's why there's so many 8D audio clips of existing songs, and that was my obsession for such a long time. I think a lot of us can relate to that. When the 8D audio trend really popped off, I was listening to every single one of my favorite tracks in 8D, and I just felt like I was levitating. But both of them, they only work with headphones. So like I said, without them, the immersive quality disappears entirely. The magic is lost. Some people find 8D audio deeply immersive, even therapeutic. I'm definitely one of those people, but others describe it as disorienting or unnatural. But what it shows is how profoundly our brains respond to spatial movement and sound, and how headphones unlock that experience in ways that speakers just can't. In fact, one study found that when participants listened to music via binaural recordings on headphones compared to mono or stereo playback through speakers, they reported stronger emotional responses and a heightened sense of presence. That vivid feeling of actually being in the space that the music is creating. Headphones didn't just improve audio fidelity, they actually amplified emotion. And what all this points to is pretty simple but profound. Headphone listening really does change the relationship between you and the music. It creates a tunnel between your inner world and the world of the song. In that moment, nothing else matters. Not where you are, not who you're with, and not what's going on around you. You're not just hearing a song, you're basically inside of it. Now, when you slip on a pair of headphones and press play, something interesting happens. You're not just blocking out noise, you're entering into this whole different relationship with sound. The outside world fades. Your body still exists in a physical space, so whether you're on the train, in your bedroom, walking down the street, but mentally, you're somewhere else. Headphones don't just enhance the audio quality, they redirect your attention. And in cognitive psychology, attention is seen as spotlight. Wherever that spotlight shines, your brain invests more energy, more resources, and more emotional bandwidth. And headphones are one of the simplest, yet most powerful tools that we have to narrow that spotlight and focus it intensely on one thing: the music. It's the difference between reading a novel in a silent room and trying to read it in a bustling cafe. The story doesn't change, the words on the page stay the same, but the way that you feel the story, the way you connect with its emotional world, is profoundly altered by your environment. And the same principle applies to music. The more distractions that you strip away, the more emotionally available you become. And headphones, they do just that. They reduce auditory clutter, so no more background conversations, passing cars, clicking keyboards, but they also quiet your internal noise. With headphones, maybe you're less likely to check your phone, glance around the room, or split your attention between the music and something else. And that's why listening through headphones often feels like an act of emotional surrender, as if you're handing yourself over to the song, saying, "Take me wherever you're going. I'm coming with you." But this matters because music is one of the most emotionally complex and rewarding stimuli that our brain can process. It engages memory, movement, language, emotion, and even empathy networks. But to experience all of those layers, to really feel the depths of a melody, your brain needs space. It needs focus. And there's scientific backing for this. Studies have found that listeners who gave their full attention to music reported significantly stronger emotional responses than those who were distracted. Attentive listening is a key amplifier of emotional impact, a kind of psychological volume knob for how music affects us. And I think it gets even more interesting when we consider the neuroscience of music-induced chills, so the physical reaction of goosebumps or shivers that we often associate with one of those powerful musical moments. And these chills are linked to the release of dopamine, the brain's pleasure and reward chemical, particularly in areas of the brain like the nucleus accumbens and prefrontal cortex. Now, I did a whole episode on musical chills, so if you want to find out more about those, then I suggest you check out episode 10. But essentially, they occur at moments of musical peak emotion. So think about maybe the swell before a drop, an unexpected chord change, or the arrival of maybe a long-awaited hook. But here's how it comes in here. So those chills are far more likely to happen when you're fully focused on the music. So one study found that participants who were allowed to relax and focus on music reported significantly more chills and stronger emotional reactions than those who were distracted by cognitive tasks. When our attention is fragmented, we kind of dull music's emotional edge. But when we're locked in, it can really cut us straight to the core. Headphones support that deep focus in a way that few other listening methods actually do. They act like emotional blinders, and I think there's something about that physical gesture, placing headphones over your ears or pushing earbuds in, that sends a message not only to the world but to your brain. That ritual helps prime your emotional state. It's not just passive sound anymore, it becomes intentional. You're basically saying, "Hey, I'm listening now." And this focus isn't just about intensity, it's also about nuance. With full attention, sad songs feel sadder. We notice the aching in the vocalist's tone, the lonely spaces between the notes, and the way that a single lyric maybe echoes in silence. There's room to feel. You don't gloss over the pain, you just sit in it. And conversely, uplifting or euphoric songs, they feel even more electric. You catch every single rhythmic shift, every burst of harmony. the emotional highs stretch even further when you're truly present. I think it's such an amazing, immersive experience to honestly set aside time for headphone listening. It really, I think, just boosts your relationship with music, and the songs that you may already love, you just fall in love with them all over again. Actually, whenever one of my favorite artists releases a new track or a new album, I always make sure to listen to it once on speakers and once on headphones. And it's two completely different experiences. Like, for example, when I listen on speakers, maybe I've already decided that this track is my favorite or that track is my favorite. But then when I listen again on headphones, I just have a completely different experience. I might have completely different new favorites, and I think that's such an amazing experience. There's also the phenomenon of emotional synchronization, which occurs when your body and brain begin to physically respond in sync with the music. So your heart rate, breathing, and actually even your pupil dilation, they can change in tandem with the beat, tempo, and even emotional arc of the song. Studies using fMRI and physiological monitoring show that this synchrony happens more readily when the listener is undistracted and emotionally absorbed, states that are far easier to achieve with headphones. In fact, researchers have even proposed that deeply focused music listening can create a state of musical flow. So that's similar to the flow state experienced by athletes, writers, or performers. And this is when time just feels elastic. You forget your surroundings, your sense of self softens. And with headphones, this experience becomes more accessible, especially when you're walking, lying down, or even journaling. Headphones help your mind fall into rhythm with the music. You're almost like traveling through the song that you're listening to. And this focus actually has lasting effects. In therapy, music is often used as a tool to help people process emotion, regulate mood, or connect with suppressed memories. But the key to its therapeutic power, it isn't just the music itself. It's also how focused the listener is while engaging with it. Headphone listening can become a form of emotional regulation because it allows you to fully lean into a feeling, almost metabolizing it and coming out of the other side changed, and you've actually processed it, not just engaging in background listening, which is something I touched on in last week's episode as well. There really are so many benefits to active listening, not just emotionally, but cognitively, and using headphones, it really already preps you into that state of mind and makes active listening so much more second nature. So while headphones are often marketed in terms of crisp bass or noise cancellation, their real power lies in their ability to curate your focus. And in music, which is an art form built on timing, detail, tension, and release, that focused attention transforms what might otherwise be background noise into something unforgettable. When you give music your full attention, it becomes more than sound. It becomes a companion, a mirror, a memory, a movement. And headphones really are the gateway to that experience. Now, I think that there's a quiet kind of power in slipping on a pair of headphones. That single gesture, you're like drawing a boundary. You're basically saying, this space is mine. Do not disturb, basically. And though you might still be physically present, whether it's on a bus, in a park, or even just walking down the street, emotionally, you've stepped into a world entirely of your own design. At its core, wearing headphones is really an act of emotional privacy. It's not just about listening to music, it's about shielding the inner self from the chaos of the outer world. I'd say headphones are the modern equivalent of shutting a door or pulling the curtains closed. They're almost like portable walls that we carry with us. I mean, think about it. I've definitely been guilty of putting headphones on and sometimes not even listening to any music, but just having it as a symbol of, hey, I'm like withdrawing from my social availability, and you are less likely to be approached. And there's actually research to support this as well. So in urban environments, people perceive those wearing headphones as less approachable or less open to interaction. But rather than being isolating, this kind of selective withdrawal can feel protective, even liberating, because you're creating a controlled emotional environment within a noisy, quite unpredictable one. And with headphones, music becomes more than just background noise, like I said. It really becomes your whole environment. You're curating your own inner experience. The outside world is still moving, it's doing its own thing, but you've now laid your own emotional soundtrack over it. And this control over your emotional input is incredibly powerful. It allows you to regulate your feelings on the go, to match or shift your mood with precision. It's almost like putting on armor before stepping out into the world. Your playlist becomes a form of preparation, whether it's soothing music to steady your nerves before a stressful event, or upbeat tracks to keep you energized during a long walk. And this is known in psychology as emotional self-regulation. And this is something that I talk about a lot here on A Sound Mind. And it's your ability to manage your internal states. And music is a really well-documented tool for doing this effectively. The headphone experience makes this regulation more potent by adding this layer of privacy. No one else hears the soundtrack that you're moving to. No one else sees the journey that you're navigating. It's almost like this invisibility and secrecy that can be profoundly comforting, especially in those moments of vulnerability. And when we think about neurodivergent individuals, this privacy isn't just helpful, it can be essential. People with ADHD or autism often experience the world as overwhelmingly noisy, both literally and emotionally. Sensory processing difficulties are common in both conditions, meaning that even normal background sounds can become distressing or exhausting. And headphones, they serve as a sensory filter. They reduce the amount of auditory input coming from the environment and replace it with something predictable and emotionally safe: music. And this kind of control over sensory input has been shown to reduce anxiety and increase comfort, especially in more unpredictable environments. Some people use noise-cancelling headphones even without music, like I said, to dull ambient sound, but when music is added, especially something familiar and emotionally resonant, the effect can be even more soothing. And it's not just about comfort, actually. It's also about identity and autonomy. For many neurodivergent individuals, using music in headphones isn't just coping, it's also about crafting this sense of self, a personal bubble where they can be fully themselves without needing to mask or conform. I think there's something subtly radical about using headphones to protect your emotions. In a society that often demands emotional composure and constant availability, especially in public, headphones, they really give you the permission to feel, to cry quietly to a breakup song on the metro, to smile softly at a memory sparked by a lyric, and to let a wave of nostalgia, longing, or joy just wash over you without needing to explain it to those around you. With headphones, your emotional life is yours again, not up for public consumption or interruption. In this way, I think headphones aren't antisocial at all. They're basically intra-social. They help us connect more deeply with ourselves, to check in with how we're really feeling beneath the layers of distraction and noise. And by doing so, they often help us show up in the world more centered, more grounded, and more whole. After all, headphones do far more than just protect your emotional privacy. Over time, they've become woven into the fabric of our daily rhythms. That gesture that I spoke about earlier, the physical cue that sends a clear message to your brain and body, like, it's time to switch gears. I'm listening now. And that ritualistic gesture, even though it might seem small or mundane, I think it carries such profound psychological weight. The repeated motion, so the familiar click or pull of your headphone band, it becomes a reliable anchor in the flow of your day. Whether it's the routine of strapping on headphones during a busy morning commute, slipping them on to boost energy during a workout, or using them to wind down late at night. This behavior doesn't just accompany your day, it actually helps to structure it. It becomes a cornerstone in the way that you organize your emotional and cognitive life. And over time, your brain starts to associate the physical sensation of wearing headphones with specific mental states. You don't just put on headphones and listen to music. You put on headphones and prepare to feel calm, motivated, energized, or introspective, whatever emotional or mental state usually follows that action. And this process creates what we call emotional muscle memory. Just as physical muscles grow stronger through repeated exercise, your emotional brain develops habits and expectations tied to these sensory cues. For example, putting on your workout playlist through headphones, it might trigger a rush of adrenaline and motivation, preparing your body and mind for exercise. And alternatively, sliding on your headphones in the evening and selecting a slow ballad can gently cue your nervous system to relax after a stressful day. And this conditioning, it primes your brain and it makes the music's effects more potent, not simply because of the sound itself, but because your mind is already tuned in to receive it. In psychology, this phenomenon is known as cue-based behavior or context-dependent memory. So external cues like the tactile feeling of headphones setting on your ears become automatic triggers that can elicit predictable mental or emotional responses. And some researchers have described how these cues allow your brain to quickly and reliably basically switch modes, turning headphone listening from passive background noise into a comforting, intentional, and emotionally meaningful habit. And given this, it's no surprise that headphone companies have built entire marketing narratives around the ritualistic and emotional power of their products. I think it's Bose that have famously leaned into the idea of headphones as a tool for escape. It's like a way to shed the noise and stress of the outside world and step into this almost private sanctuary of sound. Apple's AirPods Pro as well, they similarly emphasize how headphones integrate seamlessly into daily life, enabling effortless transitions between work, play, and rest. Each phase marked by the simple, repeated act of putting on or taking off the headphones. And this marketing, it taps into a deep, universal human need. The desire for structure, control, and emotional grounding amid the unpredictability of daily life. And the headphone ritual answers this need by creating a dependable, repeatable moment of calm, motivation, or joy. It's a ritual that may seem small, but it's so profoundly powerful. It's like a daily act of self-care. It's more than just shutting out others. It's all about drawing a line around your emotional world, honoring the parts of yourself that need space, privacy, and most of all, music to flourish. So, next time you reach for your headphones, pause for a moment and recognize what you're really doing. You're not merely tuning into music. You're engaging in a meaningful ritual that primes your mind, body, and emotions for whatever lies ahead. And I think that this also applies for podcast listening as well. You may be listening to this episode on your headphones right now. And it's all the same thing, really. This seemingly small, often overlooked act. It builds emotional resilience, shapes your daily rhythm, and transforms audio into a powerful tool for focus, comfort, and personal transformation. Headphones are so much more than just a way to get better audio. They just give you control over your environment, creating emotional space, and becoming part of this meaningful ritual as part of your day. So I want you to think about a track that just doesn't feel the same without headphones. What does that say about the way that you listen and how the music connects with you on a deeper level? What's your headphone ritual? What songs do you go back to again and again and again, and why is that? And as you move through the week, I also encourage you to try something simple but powerful. Pick one new song and listen to it only through headphones. And pay close attention. How does it change your experience? How does it make you feel differently? And that's what I'll leave you on for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me today on The Sound Mind. I'm really interested to hear all your reflections on those questions and exercises. So yeah, do reach out to me on Instagram or on Threads at The Sound Mind Talks. I always love engaging in such interesting discussions with you all. Now, if you have enjoyed this episode, please rate or review on wherever you're listening and share it with someone who loves music just as much as you do. Don't forget to follow us and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. But until next time, keep listening, keep reflecting, and I'll see you on the Sound Mind.